Part 57. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 561. On the way to Jiyuntang, I asked Tao Wen where the remaining 3 ghosts were. Tao Wen took out a piece of parchment from his pocket. The brown leather has a soft and cold feel, as if it was taken out of the freezer, exuding a somewhat unknown and strange atmosphere. I felt something strange staring at the parchment. Tao Wen handed me the piece of parchment and said, except for Yaksha and Rakshasa, there are no records of these 2 evil ghosts. The remaining ghosts and monsters have already pointed out the direction. When I took the parchment, I immediately felt something was wrong. This is not parchment, but human skin. I informed Tao Wen of this idea in my mind. Tao Wen nodded after listening and said, this is indeed not parchment, but the human skin of my ancestor. After he sealed the ghost in the corpse coffin, he passed away, and then he carved the clues of the ghost on his skin. Superior. I nodded and looked at the human skin paper. There is a picture on the human skin paper. In the painting, a long river stretches for thousands of miles. There are small heads in the river. If you look closely, they turn out to be fierce ghosts. In addition to the first time, there are also figures one after another painted in the woods on both sides of the river. At the end of the river is a huge city gate. The city gate is so towering that you can feel its grandeur just by looking at the paintings on human skin. I couldn't help but sigh as I looked at the city gate. Tao Wen asked with some confusion, what's wrong? I pointed to the city gate and said, I seem to have seen the city gate somewhere. Have you seen it? I nodded and fell into memory. Where exactly did you see the city gate? At this moment, a golden light flashed in my eyes. I remembered. I pointed to the city gate on the human skin paper and said, isn't this city gate the gate of hell in the underworld? The city gate on the human skin paper is exactly the same as the gate of hell in the underworld. Could it be said that those 2 fierce ghosts are at the gate of hell? I denied this idea as soon as it surfaced. If it is really at the gate of hell, then it is impossible for the underworld to turn a blind eye and not hear. Tao Wen and I studied for a long time, but we couldn't figure out the reason. Before we knew it, Tao Wen and I returned to Jiyuntang. I hesitated for a moment, activated the ghost seal, and summoned the gate to the underworld. It seems that this matter still needs to be consulted by professionals to get the answer. Just when I wanted to step into the gate of the underworld and enter the underworld to look for Xiang Yi, a figure walked out of the gate of the underworld. I was slightly startled. It turned out to be Xiang Yi. Xiang Yi sat down on the 8 Immortals chair, crossed her legs, and said to me, I have no money. I want to borrow some money from you. The corner of my mouth twitched slightly. I thought Xiang Yi was looking for me for something important, but I didn't expect that he was asking for money. I didn't say anything to Xiang Yi and just took out the human skin paper and showed it to Xiang Yi. Master Xiang, is this the hell gate of the underworld painted on it? Xiang Yi took the human skin paper and was slightly startled. This is not the gate of hell, but... My eyes lit up. Xiang Yi, as a ghost from the underworld, really knew about this. Just when I was filled with joy and hoped to hear some useful information from Xiang Yi, he stretched out his right hand in front of me. Put your index finger and thumb together and rub it gently, making an international gesture. I raised my eyebrows and said, say first, I'm getting money for you. Xiang Yi shook his head and said, give me the money first. I'll talk later. Helpless, I could only take out a stack of ghost money and hand it to Xiang Yi. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 562. Xiang Yi chuckled, took the ghost money, and then his expression instantly became extremely serious and said, the place mentioned above is not the gate of hell, but the pass to the underworld. The underworld? What is that place? Xiang Yi explained, the underworld is a place of extreme chaos without any rule restrictions. There are countless evil spirits in it. It is an area outside the jurisdiction of the underworld. Hearing this, I felt doubtful and asked, then, hasn't the underworld ever thought of governing the underworld? Xiang Yi shook his head and replied, the underworld has a special meaning of existence. Its relationship with the real world is that of shadow and body. For example, Tianfu City is bathed in sunshine, and the underworld in Tianfu City corresponds to darkness. It is filled with all the filth and darkness in the world. It is precisely because of the existence of such a place that Tianfu City is what it is today. Peaceful. It dawned on me. Xiang Yi picked up the tea that Miao Fengluan had made for him, took a sip, and then continued, boy, I don't know what you are planning, but there is no way out of the underworld. If you break the underworld, the boundary between domain and reality will cause the entire Tianfu City to be in danger. Xiang Yi looked very serious when he said this. I let out a long sigh and told him everything about the mission Ghost Lord and the corpse coffin. Xiang Yi's expression froze after hearing this, and then he fell into silence. After a while, he raised his head and said, in this case, you must go. Even if you don't go, the boundary between the underworld and reality will be broken. At this time, I suddenly thought of something and looked at Xiang Yi with a smile. Xiang Yi was confused by the smile on my face. Why do you think you look at me like this? I didn't say anything, just stared at Xiang Yi with a smile. Xiang Yi was a little frightened by my stare. His throat trembled as he said, I can tell you. Although I am handsome, I am not interested in men. I rolled my eyes and asked, Master Xiang, do you want to make money? Xiang Yi immediately refused, I don't want to. I sighed and said with some regret, not everyone can draw ghost money, and not everyone can own it. If I can't come back this time, Mr. Xiang will have no source of income. Xiang Yi understood what I meant instantly. Boy, let me tell you. I will not go to that kind of ghost place. I will never go. I shrugged helplessly. I didn't ask Mr. Xiang to go with me. I just reminded Mr. Xiang that if something happens to me, you will lose a wage earner and a source of income. I just don't know what will happen to the little female ghosts you keep if you don't have ghost money. Xiang Yi stood up and shouted, you threaten me. I shook my head and replied, I'm just stating the facts. Xiang Yi was so angry at what I said that he pointed at me and couldn't say a word for a long time. You kid, you are so cruel. I will go with you. I smiled and thanked Xiang Yi repeatedly. A trip to the underworld is bound to be extremely dangerous. Just the explicit threat is enough to give me a headache. After that, I took out my cell phone and made a call. Soon, the call was connected, and a familiar voice came from there. Lu Su, what's the matter? 11. I have something to ask for your help with. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 563. I told Zhang Xi that I was going to enter the underworld to capture the ghosts. After listening, Zhang Xi nodded and said, okay, you wait for me in Jiyuntang, I'll go over now. Xiang Yi told me the approximate location of the Yin domain in Tianfu City, and then left, leaving a message. I'll go back and take care of some things first. When you enter the underworld, you can summon me through the gate of the underworld. I know what this guy is going to do without even thinking about it. Apart from accompanying his little female ghosts, what else is there? I glanced at the second floor and hesitated whether to wake Huaxiu up and go with me. After much hesitation, I still didn't go to call Huaxiu. Huaxiu is currently in the critical stage of evolving into bones, so she cannot be disturbed. After a while, Zhang Xi arrived at Jiyuntang. He greeted me politely first, and then the three of us started planning our trip to the Yin realm of Tianfu City. At this moment, Miao Fengluan, who was silent on the side, suddenly said, "Lu Su, I want to go too." I looked at Miao Fengluan, and just when I was about to refuse, I saw Miao Fengluan looking at me aggrievedly. "Don't reject me in a hurry. I also want to help you. Don't worry, I won't hold you back." Then Miao Fengluan looked at Zhang 11 again and prayed, "Brother 11, help me persuade him. I won't drag you back. Just let me go." Zhang 11 looked at me and said hesitantly, "Lu Su, why don't you just agree to her? With her special abilities, she might be able to help us." Zhang Xiai is right, Miao Fengluan's Shenine can indeed help us, but I don't want Miao Fengluan to take risks. But when I saw the determined look on her face, I finally agreed. The next morning, we set out on the road to the ghost domain of Tianfu City. Just as we opened the door, a woman in red came into view. When the woman saw me, she was a little surprised and asked, "Lu Su, when did you come back?" The visitor was none other than Ruo Hong. Ruo Hong's beautiful eyes kept looking over and over at me. When she saw me getting ready to go, I asked with some confusion, "Where are you going?" I told Ruo Hong our purpose. Ruo Hong was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then a flash of anger emerged in her eyes. She said angrily, "You didn't tell me such a big thing? Do you still regard me as a friend?" Just when I was about to explain, I saw Ruo Hong folding her hands on her chest, turning her face to the side, and said with some dissatisfaction, "Or am I going to hold you back?" Afterwards, Ruo Hong criticized me for a while, and finally asked me to go with me. I know that if I don't agree to her today, she won't give up. Just like that, I, Zhang Xiai, Tao Wen, Ruo Hong, and Miao Fengluan left Ji Yuntang together. The map drawn on the human skin tells us that if we want to go to the underworld, we must pass through a village. Tao Wen told me that this village, called Chuihua Village, has long since disappeared on modern maps and cannot be found at all. Unfortunately, we can only explore. The driver was very talkative and asked us if we were travel companions. Going to the eastern suburbs is not about exploring. My thoughts changed and I asked, "Master, do you know Chuihua Village?" When he heard the words Chuihua Village, the driver's expression became visibly condensed. He quickly shook his head in denial and said, "I don't know. I have never heard of this village." Although the driver denied it decisively, I realized that this driver must know something. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 564. I reached into my pocket, took out $500 bills, and handed them to the driver. The driver refused at first, but couldn't resist my enthusiasm, and finally reluctantly accepted it. "Do you know why Chuihua Village is called this name?" The driver is also a very understanding person. He understood my intention when I handed over the money. I shook my head and said, "I don't know. The door is closed and the house is shut down." The driver master replied, "Chuihua Village used to be very famous in Tianfu City. Because all the villagers in Chuihua Village can sing shadow puppet shows. At that time, many wealthy families would pay a lot of money to hire them to sing shadow puppet shows." Ruo Hong on the side fell into deep thought after hearing this. I looked at the driver and asked, "Then why did Chuihua Village disappear?" The driver shook his head and replied, "I don't know the specific situation, but I heard others say that their Chuihua Village was." The driver's voice paused, and there was a look of fear in his eyes. "By what?" I asked quickly. "They were killed by their shadow puppets." Hearing this sentence, I was stunned on the spot. Was I killed by a shadow puppet? The driver held the steering wheel with one hand, took out a cigarette from his pocket with the other hand, put it in his mouth, and then took out a lighter and lit it. He took a deep breath and continued, "Chuihua Village did not really disappear, but it was no longer inhabited and became a deserted village. This is why it is not recorded on the map." I nodded and said, "Master, I'd like to trouble you. Just put us at the entrance of Chuihua village. The driver sighed helplessly. Alas, you young people are willing to risk your lives in order to seek excitement. Some travel companions went to Chuihua village before, but what happened? Not even the body was found. I smiled at the driver and said nothing more. At this time, Ruo Hong stretched out her hand and pulled the corner of my clothes, and whispered in my ear, I seem to know this desolate village. I shook my head at Ruo Hong and glanced at the driver who was driving. Then he replied in a low voice, it's not convenient to say it now. You can tell us in detail after we get off the car. Ruo Hong nodded. Time soon came to evening, and we arrived at Chuihua village before sunset. The driver pointed to the woods not far away and said, passing through this woods, you will see Chuihua village in front of you. The driver hesitated for a moment and continued, it's too late for you to regret it now. After all, I'm here. When it gets late at night, there will be no way to go back. I smiled at the driver and thanked him. Seeing that he couldn't persuade us, the driver had no choice but to drive away. A few of us walked in the direction of Chuihua village. On the way, Miao Fengluan opened his backpack, and the black crow poked its head out of the backpack. Mr. Bird is suffocated to death. Miao Fengluan smiled slightly and said apologetically, I've wronged you, Xiao He. Xia He. The name is quite appropriate. The crow flew out of the backpack and landed on Miao Fengluan's shoulder. I looked at Ruo Hong and asked, what did you want to do in the car just now? Ruo Hong looked a little ugly. She sighed and replied, my master once told me about Chuihua village. She told me that the whole village is full of shadow puppets, and these shadow puppets are very evil and can not only sing shadow puppets, and can also drive away ghosts through shadow puppets. Besides, the rumors told by the driver may be true. The villagers in Chuihua village were probably killed by the shadow puppets they made themselves. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 565. Crow Xia He said disdainfully, tch. Are you lying here to trick birds? How can shadow puppets kill people? You, bird master, and I can't kill people even after I become a spirit. I have to be careful about being stewed by you humans. Xiao He said and glanced at me. Ruo Hong rolled her eyes, stretched out her slender white fingers, and stabbed Xiao He in the head. I have never seen you as such a weak spirit. You can only speak after practicing for so long. You are really weak. Ruo Hong kept looking at Xia He with disgust. Xiao He opened his mouth, but didn't say a word to refute for a long time, and finally turned his face to the side and stopped talking to Ruo Hong. Continuing the topic just now, Ruo Hong continued, ordinary shadow puppets cannot indeed kill people, but the shadow puppets made by shadow puppet masters can. My master said that when shadow puppet makers make shadow puppets, they will use the human skin of living people, and they will also seal the living souls of people into the shadow puppets. This kind of shadow puppet itself is a powerful ghost, so it is okay for shadow puppets to kill people. While we were talking, we had passed through the woods. The moon was incomplete but still hanging in the dark night sky. The sky was getting darker, and the rolling clouds covered the only little light with darkness. What you see in front of you is a desolation, with gray tiles and white walls, and grass tightly clustered together. Under the cold moonlight, the desolate grass creates countless mysterious shadows. From a distance, it looks like a ghostly flame of the undead, growing endlessly. Chuihua village is right in front of you, and you can feel the bone-chilling chill from afar. A few of us looked at each other and walked towards the village. There is a large dry river outside Chuihua village. I saw that this big river was winding and spreading gracefully into the depths of the mountains. I took out the human skin paper from my pocket and compared the river on the human skin paper with the dry river in front of me. My brows instantly wrinkled. Zhang Shi came to my side, looked at the dry riverbed and said, the big river on the human skin paper is obviously the one in front of you. If you want to find the Netherland, you must keep walking along this dry river bed. I nodded, pointed at the human skin paper and said, you are right, but look, this human skin paper has water in the river, and there is also a boat here, which means that if you want to enter the underworld, you must travel by boat. I don't know how long the river in front of me is. If I keep walking, I don't know how long it will take. Xiao He suddenly said on my shoulder, this is not a boat. It's obviously a bastard. I was slightly stunned and looked at the ship on the human skin paper. After Xiao He said this, that ship really looks a bit like a turtle. We will stay in the village for one night to see if there is anything unusual, and then we will think of a solution. Several people nodded. Entering Juihua village, you will see a quaint stage. There is also a dusty curtain on the stage, which seems to be used for shadow puppet performances. This stage faces the river beside the village. Xiao He said in my ear, I'm going to ask the little animals in this village and see if I can find anything. I nodded, not worried that it would escape. After all, Miao Fengluan was there. We had been driving for a day and were all a little tired. Juihua village is so dilapidated that no family can stay, let alone rest. As I walked, I felt like I had stepped on something soft under my feet. Under the moonlight, I looked down and saw a rotten pillow trampled under my feet, but this pillow gave people an extremely weird feeling. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 566. The rotten pillow exuded a faint yin energy. Because the body consciousness is strengthened, the feeling of yin qi is also strengthened. I had never felt such a weak yin energy before. There is only one possibility for this pillow to exude yin energy. This pillow was used by the deceased before his death. In addition, I also found two identical rotten pillows not far away. Tao Wen and Zhang Shi also noticed it. They looked at me in confusion and asked, Lu Su, why are you so obsessed with a rotten pillow? I came to my senses and replied, no. It's nothing. A few of us found an old house that was relatively well preserved. I pushed the door open. The moment the door was pushed open, dust flew everywhere and I couldn't help but cough. The smoke and dust dispersed, and the old house was dilapidated. The door of the main hall was wide open, and there was an 8 Immortals chair in the middle of the main hall. Just when I turned my eyes to look elsewhere, I suddenly saw a person sitting on the 8 Immortals chair out of the corner of my eye. I was stunned for a moment, turned my head sharply, and looked at the 8 Immortals chair again. There is nothing on the 8 Immortals chair. At this moment, Miao Fengluan exclaimed from the side, come and see. We quickly approached Miao Fengluan and saw that the broken wall in front of Miao Fengluan was densely covered with blood writing. The content of the word blood is only 2 words. Run. The blood words have dried up, but the fear and panic of the writer can still be seen. The rotten pillows, the figure on the 8 Immortals chair, and these shocking words in blood all highlight the unusualness of this village. There must be a ghost in this village. It's just that they are hiding and we are showing up. We have to wait until they take action against us before we can find out what is going on in this village from their mouths. We found a room and planned to take a short rest. It was said to be a rest, but everyone seemed very cautious. Zhang Shi came to me and sat down. He looked at me and said, have you heard about the Lucian festival held in Mission? I nodded. Zhang Shi's expression became a little ugly, and he said, before Mission spread this news, many capable people and strangers on both sides of the yin and yang strait had disappeared. Hearing this, I frowned and asked tentatively, you mean, this Lucian Daijiao is a conspiracy against capable people and strangers? Zhang 11 nodded, yes, my master was also invited to attend the Lucian festival. Before he left, he said a lot of incomprehensible words to me, as if he was explaining the funeral arrangements. I think he must. What's the point? Tao Wen heard the conversation between Zhang Xi and me and said, actually, your worries are not unreasonable. Zhang Xi and I looked at Tao Wen in confusion. Tao Wen also sat next to me and said in a serious tone, my master told me before he passed away not to interfere in anything in mission, including the Lushan Xiao. His old man also told me that in the near future, the capable people and strangers on both sides of the Yin and Yang Strait will face a catastrophe, and he doesn't want me to get involved. My heart slowly sank. I can't help but worry about Su Tianxian. After things here are resolved, I must go to mission in person. I don't know how much time has passed. My eyelids started to fight. Not only me, but Ruo Hung and others also had the same reaction. They all tried to stay awake. At this time, the darkness in the room gradually became thicker, and then, a white mist floated out of thin air. I screamed in my heart and just wanted to tell everyone to cover their noses. But before he could say anything, he fell into a deep sleep. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 567. I don't know how long it took, but the biting cold surrounded me layer by layer, as if I was in an ice cave. I wanted to open my eyes, but found that it was impossible to do so. In addition, I also felt weak all over and my limbs could not use any strength at all. The consciousness is still there, but the body has lost the ability to move. I immediately understood what was going on. The ghost presses the bed. Just when I was thinking of reciting the golden light mantra silently in my mind to break the ghost and press the bed, a slight breathing sound suddenly sounded in my ears. Call. The sound of breathing is very light, but extremely clear, as if someone is lying next to you and whispering to you. At this moment, a cold hand slowly touched my cheek. The next moment, I felt something licking my face. The wetness made me very uncomfortable. Ja. The sound of breathing suddenly stopped and was replaced by a sinister smile. You smell so good, I will eat you up slowly. I felt a chill in my heart and quickly recited the golden light spell in silence. A tyrannical force moved through my body, and the feeling of being imprisoned disappeared instantly. I opened my eyes suddenly and saw a pale face with drool coming into my eyes. I condensed my expression and picked up the Thunder Jew, trying to knock this ghost thing off my body. But I suddenly discovered that the Thunder Jew couldn't be used. I raised my knees and pressed them hard against the ghost's abdomen. The ghost thing lying on my body was pushed out by me. I quickly stood up and looked at him warily, looking back and forth around him out of the corner of my eye. I was still in that room, but Zhang Xi and others were nowhere to be seen. Was he taken away? This is the first thought in my mind. Wait, I think I found something that shouldn't be here. I looked towards the spot where I had just been lying. I don't know when the rotten pillow appeared in my sight. My brain buzzed, which meant that I was just lying on this pillow. The ghost on the ground struggled to get up. I could clearly see the man's face through the pale moonlight. It was a man, about 40 years old, with messy hair like a henhouse, and a long and messy beard. His face was pale, and there was just a stupid look between his brows. On his body, I felt the breath of a living person. In other words, this man was a living person. And he's still a fool. The man smiled stupidly at me, and then said, You shouldn't come here. Everyone who comes here will die. Everyone will die. Seeing the man like this, I suddenly thought of a profession. That is the village guard. There is a fool in my hometown village, but he is very respected in the village. No matter the old people or children, they will not laugh at him. Later, my grandfather told me that the fool was the village guard. According to legend, the village guardian came to the world to practice hard. He could eliminate disasters for the village and block all bad luck from himself. Suffering in this life is for blessings in the next life. As long as it threatens the existence of the village, he will definitely take action to eliminate it. The village guard rushed towards me. I tried to pick up the Thunderdew, but it didn't work. This makes me very confused. Why does Taoism fail here? But I clearly used the golden light spell just now. Before I had time to think about it, the village guard had already rushed in front of me. He opened his mouth, revealing his sallow and black teeth. I could only dodge. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 568. The village guard was extremely fast, and even though I had already dodged, I was still knocked to the ground by him. My brain was racing. Since Taoist techniques like 9 layers Thunderdew cannot be used, what about the power from myself? While I was thinking, the village guard had already arrived in front of me. My expression condensed, and I suddenly stretched out my right hand. Scarlet blood instantly covered my entire arm. I felt happy and attacked the village guard's chest directly. The soul-stealing bloody hand instantly penetrated the village guard's chest. I grabbed it suddenly and directly held the village guard's soul in my hand. The village guard froze for a moment, then opened his mouth and shouted heartbreakingly. "It hurts. It hurts. Now I can completely pull away the soul of the village guard, or even crush it. But I can't do this, I still want to learn the way to the underworld from his mouth. Tell me, what is going on in this village?" The village guard ignored me and kept shouting about pain. I increased the strength of my hand again, and the village guard screamed louder. At this moment, the body of the village guard unexpectedly changed. A little white light suddenly appeared on his body, and then disappeared into the air. I was stunned for a moment. What exactly is going on? The village guards are clearly alive. How could it disappear out of thin air? I rushed out of the house to check. When I opened the door, I was dumbfounded, because it was pitch black outside, as if there was only this one room left in the world, and the rest was an endless abyss. Just as I was about to take a step forward into the darkness, a voice sounded in my head. "Don't go out. If you go out, you will fall into the abyss and never come out." This voice is milky, ethereal, and crisp. My eyes froze, and the voice turned out to be Kijumendi. Then, a beam of colorful light slowly condensed in front of and behind me. When I looked back, it turned out to be Kijumendi. The little guy still looks that cute, with colorful gradient hair hanging casually behind his back, and a slight blush on his porcelain doll-like cheeks. Before I could speak, she stretched out her fat little hands and pulled me into the house. "How is this going?" Kijumendi put her hands on her hips and pointed at me, looking like a little adult. "Do you know that you are in a dream right now?" "In a dream? This is the only area in the dream, and there is an endless abyss outside. If you go out, you will never wake up again." I was a little scared. If Kijumendi hadn't appeared in time, I would have died. Then how did I fall into the dream? I asked. Kijumendi looked around and finally placed the realization on the rotten pillow. She pointed her finger at the pillow and said, "No, that's it." Kijumendi jumped on the bed, picked up the pillow and said, "This is a yellow beam pillow. Anyone who sleeps on it will fall into a dream and be unable to extricate themselves. In addition, the yin energy emitted by the yellow beam pillow can also affect other people and make them fall into a deep sleep." It dawned on me that this was the case. Kijumendi waved her hand and said, "Forget it, even with your IQ, you won't understand even if I tell you so much, I'll just explain it to you briefly." The corner of my mouth twitched slightly. I was actually looked down upon by a little girl. This is not a real yellow beam pillow. It is just the condensed yin qi of the deceased and the obsession during his lifetime. It can only be regarded as an imitation. I nodded and asked, "Then how do I get out of here?" Kijumendi came to me, looked at me with a smile, and said, "I can help you leave, but you have to give me delicious food. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 569. I raised a wry smile and said, "Where should I find food for you? Besides, I can't find it now." The smile on Kijumendi's face slowly dissipated, replaced by something extremely cold. "Are you saying that what you said to me before is just trying to make a big deal out of me?" Kijumendi's tone became cold. I quickly said, "No, no, no. How dare I draw a pie for you? I'm not ready yet. I'll do it next time, I'll do it next time." Kijumendi's expression softened slightly. She raised her pink fist and threatened, "I believe you for once. If you are lying to me, I will let you know how powerful I am." I breathed a long sigh of relief. Although Kijumendi has lived for thousands of years, her innocence still remains at the age of 7 or 8. So, as long as you say something nice, she will believe it. "Hand out," Kijumendi said to me. I stretched out my hand, and then Kijumendi put her chubby little hand in my palm, and then a burst of dazzling colorful light burst out from her palm. Colorful light filled my eyes. When the golden light dissipated, I opened my eyes and saw the broken ceiling. I'm back to reality. I was overjoyed and quickly stood up and found Zhang Shi-I and others lying on the ground in a comatose state. Then can you help them?" Kijumendi snorted very arrogantly, then stretched out her index finger and tapped the eyebrows of Zhang 11 and others. Colorful light suddenly appeared, and Zhang 11 and others slowly opened their eyes. Zhang Shi-I rubbed his head and asked with some confusion, "What's wrong with me? And, who is she?" I told a few people what had just happened, and everyone was a little scared after hearing it. Then everyone thanked Kijumendi. However, Kijumendi was very arrogant and ignored them at all. But when facing Miao Fengluan, Kijumendi seemed very interested. It seems that Miao Fengluan's innocence and kindness as a girl from the Luohua cave are really popular. At this moment, Xiao He flew in from outside. It landed on my shoulder and said quickly, "Master Bird is scared to death. I just met a dog Taoist priest. He grabbed me and insisted on stewing me." I frowned and asked, "What Taoist priest?" Xiao He replied, "He is a young man, wearing a Taoist robe, with brown eyes and a big nose." My frown slowly relaxed after hearing Xiao He's narration. It seems that they are not the 3 puppet elders. "He caught you?" I asked. Xiao He nodded repeatedly and replied, "Of course you caught me. Ask me what I am doing here." Fortunately, Mr. Bird, I was smart and lied to him. Xiao He was very proud of himself. I looked at Xiao He with squinted eyes and said, "Lying? I think you told him all about our purpose and he let you go." Xiao He was stunned for a moment, then lowered his head and said nothing. This dead bird. Really afraid of death. Xiao He raised his head and said, "However, he doesn't have any malicious intentions. He seems to be looking for the underworld when he comes here." "Also looking for the underworld?" Tao Wen was stunned when he heard this and said, "I think I know who he is." Just as I was about to ask, I heard Zhang Shi-I make a silencing gesture towards us and point to the door. I came to the broken wooden door and looked out through the crack in the door. The door was brightly illuminated by the pale moon, and a figure could be seen sneakily approaching in the darkness. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 570. When I saw the figure in the dark, I knew instantly who it was. Village guard. I turned my head and waved to Miao Fengluan. Miao Fengluan came to me, and I whispered to her, "Can your Shinayan work on all of us?" Miao Fengluan nodded, showed me a cute smile, and replied, "Yes, my strength has improved very quickly during this period." "Then I'll trouble you. Miao Fengluan said nothing more, stretched out her hands, crossed them on her chest, and then gently shook her slender white jade fingers. A beam of white light slowly spread from the white hands. Then, white light enveloped us all, as if we were wearing silver white clothes. I opened the crack of the door and looked at the village guard in the darkness. He slowly walked out of the darkness, looking foolish but extremely cautious. His two copper bell-like eyeballs moved around wildly. The village guard walked tiptoe in the direction of the door. He didn't open the door directly. Instead, he stood quietly in front of the door, hesitating whether to come in or not. From my angle, I could only see his dirty clothes, and besides that, I could smell the stench coming from him. Suddenly, the village guard bent down and pressed his pale face against the crack of the door. Those copper bell-like eyes were wide open, and deep in his eyes, I saw a bone-chilling coldness. This makes me wonder whether the village guard is really stupid or fake. I stood in front of the door, and because of the hidden presence of the gods, the village guards couldn't even notice my presence. When he saw that there was no one in the room, his expression instantly became nervous. The village guard stretched out his rough hand, pushed the door open, and rushed in. He looked around, and his whole body began to become restless. The village guard turned around suddenly and was about to leave. But just as he was about to rush out of the room, the door squeaked shut tightly. The village guard was stunned for a moment. Just when he was stunned, I kicked him to the ground. Zhang Xiai and Tao Wen also stood up and directly pushed the village guard to the ground. Abba Abba! The village guard began to scream wildly. I asked Miao Fengluan to release his hidden form, and all of us suddenly appeared in the eyes of the village guards. Miao Fengluan took out the rope from his backpack and handed it to me. I tied up the village guard with the rope. Afterwards, a few of us gathered around the village guard and stared at him coldly. I asked, "Tell me, why do you want to kill us?" The village guard had a stupid look on his face. He was so frightened by us that he was shaking all over and disgusting saliva flowed from the corner of his mouth. Abba Abba! Seeing this situation, Zhang Xiai said on the side, "It is difficult to learn something from a fool." What Zhang Xiai said made sense, but I was still a little unwilling to give up and continued to ask a few questions. The village guard was just Abba Abba's answer. At this time, I suddenly remembered that the village guard would speak in my dream. But why doesn't it work in reality? I waved to Chiju Mendi, and Chiju Mendi came to me with small steps. What? I pointed at the village guard and said, "Is there any way you can make him speak?" Chiju Mendi was stunned for a moment, then looked at the village guard, shook his head, and replied, "No, but I have a way to know what you want to know."